Welcome back to the deep dive discussion of dystopian novel Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Today we discuss Chapter 12.
Yeah, and this is where things really start to unravel for some key characters.
Absolutely. We're diving into a chapter just packed with emotional fallout, shifting dynamics. We left off, remember, with the world state elite all gathered, ready for Bernard's big show.
The savage on display.
Exactly. Only for John the Savage to, refuse to come out of his room.
Right, and that single act, that refusal, it just triggers everything that follows. It's the moment Bernard Marx's whole, carefully built social triumph just collapses.
Totally collapses. It exposes how fragile his new status really was.
Yeah,
And the real nature of their social hierarchy, too.
definitely.
So our mission in this deep dive, we want to unpack the immediate consequences of John just staying put. See how characters like Bernard and Lenita, too, how they cope or maybe don't cope with this kind of unexpected emotional pain.
And we get that crucial look inside Mustafa Aman's head, which is always fascinating.
Oh, yeah. And finally, explore these realignments happening between Bernard, John, and Helmholtz Watson. They're fascinating, but also kind of uncomfortable.
Definitely uncomfortable. What happens when, that conditioned happiness slams right into raw human experience?
That's the question. And it all kicks off with that party just imploding. Bernard's outside John's door.
Utterly desperate. You can just picture him.
He's begging, right, pleading, but everybody's there. The arch community songster. He's like pulling out all the stops, practically whining, "Won't you come to please me?" The panic is palpable.
And John, he's just having none of it. Absolutely not. And it's not just being stubborn, is it? It feels more fundamental. A rejection of being, well, a zoo exhibit.
Yeah, he tells Bernard, let them wait. And when Bernard tries, "But you did come out before?" John's answer is so telling.
Right. That's precisely why I don't want to come again. He's learned being a spectacle. Humiliating.
Definitely learned.
Mm.
And when Bernard pushes about the arch community songster, wow. The book says John could only really express how he felt in Zuñi.
Yeah, he spits out aya takwa hani sons esotena with a derisive ferocity. It's this deep cultural rejection, using his own language to condemn this symbol of the world state he hates.
It's visceral, not just words.
No, not at all.
So Bernard has to go back, face the music, tell the guests, and their reaction, well, it's swift and brutal.
Oh, yeah. Pure entitled fury. Especially the higher castes, the arch songster. They feel personally insulted. They were promised a show, they didn't get it, and whose fault is it?
Bernard's, of course.
Yeah.
The guy they already looked down on.
Exactly. He instantly becomes the whipping boy again. They're talking about him right there, loud enough for him to hear, reminding everyone he's just this wretched little man, gamma minus physique.
And the old gossip comes back.
Yeah.
The bottling mistake rumor. Henry Foster even mentions the director was going to send John off to Iceland anyway. It's like a feeding frenzy.
It just shows how paper-thin his popularity was, right? It wasn't him they liked. It was the novelty he possessed. Take away the novelty.
And he's just the outsider again. The book uses that image of his confidence being like a tight balloon, just leaking air from 1,000 wounds. Painful. Public.
A total dismantling. Meanwhile, what's going on with Lenina? She was there too, but for very different reasons.
Right. Her reaction is much more internal. And like you said earlier, maybe more heartbreaking in a way. She actually came hoping to talk to John, to tell him how she felt after the feelies.
Yeah. And when he doesn't appear, she's left just sitting there, alone. Pale, the book says, her blue eyes clouded with an unwanted melancholy.
Melancholy. That's a word you don't associate with world state citizens. It's foreign to her. She feels cut off, physically weird, emptiness, apprehension, nausea.
And the book actually compares it to how someone feels before a violent passion surrogate treatment. Think about that. Her body's reacting to genuine emotional pain in a way she's not equipped for.
She tries to make sense of it. Why was he strange after the feelies? She convinces herself he must like her, and then this refusal happens.
And her mind immediately jumps to the worst possible conclusion for her, which is...
Perhaps it's because he doesn't like me.
And that thought just solidifies. She doesn't have the framework, can't grasp complex things like internal conflict or cultural shock. It just has to be simple rejection. He doesn't like her.
It really underscores the limits of her emotional education. No tools for real hurt.
None at all. And while she's wrestling with this completely alien feeling, the arch community songster decides he's had enough. He's leaving.
Bernard makes one last desperate try. Tries to get him to stay, even mentions the gold tea zipper he gave Lenina.
Pathetic, really. But the arch songster, He's not interested in saving Bernard's night. Instead, he gives Bernard this very public, very condescending lecture, calls him my young friend,
Ouch.
tells him loudly to mend your ways before it's too late, even makes the sign of the T over him. It's a clear signal from authority. Humiliating.
Total humiliation. And then he just calls out, Lenina, my dear, come with me.
And Lenina, she goes, obediently. But the book makes a point of saying she's unsmiling and wholly insensible of the honor. Her own internal turmoil about John completely overrides any social climbing instinct.
Which is actually kind of significant in itself. Even in their world, sometimes individual feeling, however limited, wins out.
It seems so. But
Yeah.
Bernard, he's left utterly alone, defeated, weeping, and then
4 tablets of soma.
the instant fix, falls asleep, smiling, off to the private paradise of his dreams. Perfect world state solution, right? Don't process the pain, don't learn from it, just numb it, make it go away.
While all that drama was playing out downstairs, we get these little flashes elsewhere. What else is happening?
Well, first upstairs, John is just reading Romeo and Juliet, completely unaware of the social catastrophe he's caused.
And Lenina, after she leaves with the arch songster.
There's that brief moment on the roof of Lambeth Palace. She looks at the moon for a second, then hurries back to him.
Interesting, like a tiny flicker of something else. Something outside the system.
Maybe. A little echo of the reservation, perhaps. But it's fleeting. She quickly returns to the conditioned reality.
But the really significant elsewhere scene, that's Mustafa Mond.
Yeah.
In his office. This is a crucial bit of insight, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We see him reading this scientific paper, A New Theory of Biology,
Yeah.
and he thinks it's brilliant, mathematically speaking, novel and highly ingenious.
But there's always a but with Mond.
Exactly. He immediately scrawls on it. Heretical and dangerous and potentially subversive, not to be published. He knows it's great work, but the implications, they threaten the whole system.
And what are the dangerous implications? Why is it subversive?
It's because the paper admits the idea of purpose. The notion that life might have some goal beyond just, well, being happy in the moment. It suggests a desire for more consciousness, maybe, more knowledge. And those things are fundamentally incompatible with engineered stability and contentment.
Because happiness is the sovereign good. Anything suggesting a goal beyond that is trouble.
Precisely. And Mon even acknowledges internally that the paper is quite possibly true, but then decides it's just not, in the present circumstance, admissible.
Wow. So the top guy is actively suppressing truth. Not because it's wrong, but because it's inconvenient for keeping people happy and controlled.
Yeah.
That's, well, it's pretty bleak.
It really is. It makes you ask, doesn't it? Is a society truly working if it has to deliberately keep its citizens in the dark, even about potential truths, just to maintain stability?
And that little sigh from Mond at the end. What fun it would be if one didn't have to think about happiness.
Yeah, just a tiny crack in his own conditioning, maybe. A hint that he misses the complexity he denies everyone else.
Or at least recognizes the cost. He knows what's been sacrificed, even if he believes it's necessary.
Exactly.
Okay, let's jump back. Next morning, Bernard's apartment. The sun was worn off.
And reality crashes in. He wakes up feeling the full weight of it all. Sober, heavy, miserable. That brief flash of success. Completely gone.
And who offers him sympathy, surprisingly.
John. He tells Bernard he seems more like what you were at Malpais. More like when they first connected, when Bernard also felt like an outsider.
John sees the unhappiness as, what? More real.
Yeah, more authentic, maybe. Bernard back to being the person who didn't quite fit in.
Bernard just says, well, it's because he's unhappy again. And
Yeah.
John delivers one of the chapter's absolute killer lines.
Right. I'd rather be unhappy than have the sort of false lying happiness you were having here. Boom. That's the core philosophical clash right there, isn't it?
Absolutely. Genuine, maybe painful experience versus manufactured bliss. A direct challenge to everything the world state stands for.
But Bernard, he doesn't take it well, even though deep down the book says he admits John's right about his worthless friends.
No, he reacts with unjust resentment. He blames John. Needs an outlet for all that bitterness and humiliation.
And John's the easy target, right? He can't hit back at the arch songster or the system. So he starts nursing this secret grievance against John, wants small revenges. It paints a pretty ugly picture of Bernard. Petty, resentful, insecure.
Yeah, his flaws are really magnified here. And this drives him back to...
And Helmholtz Watson, the friend he basically ditched when he got popular.
And how does Helmholtz react?
It's quite striking, actually. He just welcomes Bernard back, without a reproach, without a comment. Just gives the friendship back, like the quarrel never happened.
And the book stresses, This isn't Soma talking. This is just Helmholtz's character. Genuine generosity.
Which, ironically, makes Bernard feel even worse. He feels resentful towards Helmholtz's effortless decency, too. He's so trapped in his own bitterness.
Man, Bernard is really spiraling.
He really is. But Helmholtz isn't exactly trouble-free either. He reveals he's got his own conflict going on with authority over some rhymes he wrote.
Rhymes? What kind of rhymes?
He was giving a lecture, something about using rhymes in propaganda, and he decided to use some he'd written himself.
Yeah.
About being alone.
Whoa. That's like rule number one you don't break, right?
Yeah.
Everything conditions them against solitude.
Exactly. It was flatly against all their sleep teaching. He was deliberately trying to make his students feel something different, something forbidden.
And the reaction.
Predictable. An outcry. The principal threatened to sack him. He's now a marked man. But despite all that trouble,
How does Helmholtz feel?
he says he feels profoundly happy, like he's tapped into some extra latent power. He finally feels like he has something to write about.
So, completely the opposite of Bernard. Conflict and trouble don't color Helmholtz. They actually energize him creatively.
Precisely. Adversity becomes his muse in a way, while
Yeah.
Bernard just retreats into resentment and soma. It's a huge contrast.
Okay, so now we have this fascinating triangle forming. John, the outsider embodying raw experience, Bernard, crushed and bitter, and Helmholtz finding creative fire in his own rebellion,
And John and Helmholtz, they connect immediately, cordially.
which naturally drives Bernard crazy.
Oh yeah, a sharp pang of jealousy. He regrets bringing them together because they instantly find this closeness that he just couldn't achieve with John in weeks.
It really highlights Bernard's own isolation, doesn't it? Even when he facilitates connection, his own issues keep him on the outside. He's fighting the jealousy with effort. And Soma.
So Helmholtz shares his solitude, rhymes with John. Lines about absence, forming a presence, that kind of thing.
And John's reaction.
He listens, shakes his head. He wants to share something else, gets out his old mouse-eaten book, Shakespeare. Reads from The Phoenix and the Turtle.
And Helmholtz's reaction to Shakespeare.
It's incredible. He gets physically worked up, growing excitement, flushed cheeks. He trembles at certain lines. Soul Arabian tree, defunctive music. This world state engineer is being profoundly moved by ancient art about love, death, mystery, things his world tries to eliminate.
It's the power of the language, the emotional engineering, as Helmholtz calls it later. It can still break through.
For a moment, absolutely. But then, who interrupts?
Or Bernard, with this loud, nasty laugh, calls the poem Orgy Porgy, compares it to a solidarity service hymn.
Yeah. And he admits it's pure revenge because they like each other more than him. It's just a petty, destructive act, trying to spoil something beautiful for them.
Shows how low he's sunk.
Well, yeah,
While they're exploring depth, he's just lashing out.
exactly. But then comes the really shocking interruption. And this time, it's Helmholtz. But it's not malice, it's laughter.
Right. John's reading Romeo and Juliet with intense passion, totally identifying with Romeo.
Helmholtz is listening. He's intrigued by the skill, calls Shakespeare a superb technician, but he finds the actual subject getting so worked up over a girl kind of ridiculous.
And the breaking point comes when John reads the scene where Juliet's parents
yeah.
are bullying her into marrying Paris.
That's it. Helmholtz just erupts. Uncontrollable guffawing. He finds the whole situation just hilarious, smutty absurdity, parents forcing marriage, the girl already secretly involved, references to uncremated bodies losing phosphorus. It's so far outside his reality, it strikes him as completely comical.
Oh, man. John must have been crushed.
Totally. Pale, outraged. Slams the book shut, locks it away. That gesture. Removing his pearl from before swine. He feels utterly betrayed.
Does Helmholtz try to explain? Does he get why John's so upset?
He does try. After he stops laughing, he apologizes, gets John to listen, and he says he understands intellectually. He gets that one needs ridiculous, mad situations like that for powerful writing, that Shakespeare was great because he had these insane, excruciating things to get excited about. You gotta be hurt and upset.
So he grasps the connection, suffering, madness that fuels great art. He gets the theory.
He gets the theory, but he still concludes about Shakespeare's world, it won't do. The actual content, parents, mothers, fathers, intense romantic love, forced marriage, it's all so fundamentally absurd and impossible in his world that he can't bridge the gap emotionally. He sees why it worked for Shakespeare, but he can't feel it himself.
Because those sources of intense drama just don't exist for him. They've been engineered away.
Exactly, which leads him to that final, really profound question for himself and for the reader.
We need some other kind of madness and violence. But what? What? Where can one find it?
Yeah. He's hit this fundamental wall. The world state's engineered happiness, its stability, seems to have removed the very fuel needed for the kind of deep art and intense experience he's starting to sense is missing. He's left wondering if true depth is even possible anymore.
Wow. So this chapter really just peels back the layers, doesn't it? We see Bernard's total collapse under social pressure, Lenina getting this confusing glimpse of real emotional pain, Mustafa Mond coolly deciding which truths are acceptable.
And Helmholtz having this creative awakening only to realize that the very society he lives in might be preventing him from finding anything truly profound to write about. It really crystallizes that central tension.
That conflict between the smooth, controlled happiness of the world state and the messy, painful, but maybe more meaningful, more creatively fertile experiences, like suffering, solitude, real connection.
Exactly. The things John represents and Helmholtz is now starting to search for, even if he has no idea where to look in their sanitized world.
Which leads us right there with Helmholtz, pondering that question. It's a great place to leave it for now. If you engineer away all the madness and violence in the Shakespearean sense, prioritizing stability and happiness above all, what happens to human depth, to art, to understanding?
Where can you find it? What does that say about their society? And maybe, what does it make us think about our own search for happiness and stability? Definitely food for thought.
For sure. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to see you when we discuss the next chapter.